some of the best things come with struggle. They come with pain. They come with hard work.
Yep.
Well, then we get to coffee and we pour it into a roaster that will go from 400 to maybe 430 degrees.
Yeah.
And then we grind it, and then you either pour it over scalding water over it, or you put boiling water and pressure, and you express the coffee out of it.
Yeah.
And all those processes feel painful. When you get it to here, and you get the aromas, you get the flavors, you get the taste, you're like, oh, I mean, if we can look in life and we can embrace the process, even though a lot of the process is really painful, if we can look to the end result of what that is. I mean, that's one thing I like most about coffee is you go through a lot of hard stuff, but the payoff and the reward at the end is something special. And I've used that metaphor just in my own life when things get tough and they get hard. Then what's the good that's going to come from this?
Hey guys, thanks for checking in again with Brewed with Hustle. We'd really appreciate it if you guys would hit that subscribe and the like button below. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, wherever you like to check out your favorite podcasts. Subscribe to our show. We'd really appreciate it. We have some wonderful guests on. We think everybody should get a chance to see it. And the more you hit share, like, subscribe, the more people will see it. We really appreciate that. We have a wonderful guest today, Mr. Todd Vinson from EOTE Coffee, and we've got Casey back there in the background. How's it going, Casey?
Hey, what's up, guys? Doing good, man.
Good. So, I guess I'll go ahead and tell everybody we're taking take number 2 on this. I'm gonna ask Casey.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Casey if he's ever had EOTE Coffee before.
Right.
I'll ask him.
And I haven't, but I hear you talk about it a lot.
So, as I was saying before, Todd's coffee roaster and coffee shop is across the street from where the new Skydance building will be over on 7th Street in Automobile Alley, downtown urban core area. So we're looking forward to being neighbors over there and having my little morning coffee stop right across the street from the brewery.
Fun.
A little cold brew on nitro right before brew day. That'd be great.
That'd be a little inspiration, won't it?
Yeah.
Help you get through it. That's for sure.
I'll tell you what I think is going to happen is I see a bunch of coffee beers in our future.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
Coffee stouts, coffee ambers, coffee everything.
I hear that's the hot new thing.
Yep. So as I said, Todd Vinson from EOTE Coffee is with us. He founded EOTE in 2012 out of his garage at the Willow Springs Boys Ranch. He started out as just a hobby where he roasted coffee to clear his head, find some peace from brokenness that faced daily as he served boys and families in crisis. Todd, how are you, man?
Good. It's good to be here.
Good. So as I was trying to say during the first take, I really wanted to hear a story about what you were doing before EOTE started.
Right.
And I'm glad we got to take a second take because I really want to hear actually how you even got into the hobby of it.
Okay.
Like, I find that interesting. So people will ask all the time, man, how'd you ever get into brewing beer? Like, to a lot of people, it seems so weird. And to me, I'm kind of like, man, how do you ever find roasting beans as a hobby?
Well, it was crazy because we spent 20 years out in Chandler, and we founded Willow Springs Boys Ranch on some family property, my wife's side of the family. But part of that time, we had a guy come to us that was starting a girls' home in Albania. He said, "Would you go with me to help start this girls' home?"
Yeah.
And we want to have you help us with a program and thoughts on the building and doing some training with the staff. And so we get on the plane and fly to Albania. And all of a sudden on the plane, we start talking about roasting coffee. He goes, yeah, I roast coffee at home. And so every spare moment we had on that trip, we weren't deep spiritual conversations about, changing lives. It was all like, okay, now where'd you get that roaster?
Yeah.
And what's your favorite coffee? And where do you source your beans? And so we got to go past a coffee roastery in Albania and all the way home. I got home and had ordered my first roaster. And so started roasting just really as a hobby.
Yeah.
And it was a place that I could come and escape from all just the stress of the day. I mean, life's stressful enough as it is, but then we were living on a boys' ranch for boys that are in a family crisis, broken families, broken marriages, and really it was the boys that were paying the tab for a lot of the things that the parents struggled with. And so for me, I could go in at night and just roast coffee and just kind of roast all the stress away. And so I would sit in my garage, and it was a place that I got some peace and some comfort. And then I got the privilege of the enjoyment of sitting and sipping on coffee with my wife or my family or my buddies. And so that was really,
when you do that kind of social work, it's like you consume those issues,
you
right?
take it on, and you take it on in a way that you're not even aware of. And really, my story is that I did it until I couldn't anymore. And so I spent 20 years doing that. And about 4 years ago, I got to the point that I found myself on the floor, and I thought I was dying of a heart attack. And it was stress, it was spiritual, emotional, physical exhaustion. And I found myself on the floor, and I was like, I can't do it. At that point, I knew it was obvious. I couldn't do it anymore. Years prior, I was like, you just work harder, and you keep going, going until you can. And so that was really the impetus that led to our move to Edmond, and then never dreamed that something I did as a hobby would turn into something that someone else would enjoy it as much as we do, and it turned into a business. So that's the shorter version of how we've gone from Boys Ranch to roasting coffee to being in one of the coolest parts of Oklahoma City in Otto Alley, and about to be your neighbor, and excited about that part of Oklahoma City. It's a pretty special part of town.
So tell us about the actual process of taking something from a hobby to where you are now. Those early days of, should I do this? Should I not? The struggle of, can this work? You know? Tell us about that.
Naivete gets you a long way.
Yeah,
I didn't know what I didn't even know. But had a heart and had a passion for people. And so we spent 20 years pouring into people relationally in a residential program. Now we pour into people a little bit different. It's through coffee, which is a great platform to engage our community, engage other people. But it was self-taught to a certain degree, and it seemed like God kept putting other people in my place in front of me that were further along in the coffee industry, that become good friends and mentors to me. But I think it's just, being hungry to learn how to do it better, how to understand the process, then how you scale that and do it in a way that it can have a quality product, how it can be profitable, and also how you can have impact in your circle of influence. So those are the things that we're still continue to tweak. It's like you tweak your recipes for your beers, and we're always tweaking and modifying our roast profiles for our coffee. Also, the environment changed as of mid-March. The world that we live in business-wise and how people do business changed. And so we've had, the good thing for us, we've been small enough that we can turn on a dime and adjust with that. And so those are things that we're still learning.
Yeah. So when you went from, when you and I met, you were in a different building, different location at the time, and you had a tasting area, but I wouldn't say you had a coffee shop. Right. It was more production facility.
Exactly.
How have you had to adjust from being almost strictly production to now having this really nice coffee shop and more retail presence? How have you had to adjust business mind-wise, the way you approach business by adding that to your company?
Well, I guess the first thing I like is we have air conditioning. So if it was 90 degrees outside, it was 100 degrees inside. And if it was 20 degrees outside, it was about 20 degrees inside as well. And so I think our mentality was we wanted to have a place that was a little more friendly for customers to come in, but also have a nice meeting spot that really, our coffee shop is really, for all practical purposes, is a showroom for what we do on the roasting side. So you can see the process almost like a chef's table. You see the whole process. So you can look in the back. You can see us roasting every day. You can see that we put as much care in the brew method as we do in the roasting. We've got an amazing espresso machine from La Marzocco, the Leva, that is as much a piece of art as it is an espresso machine. And so we can do as much coffee edutainment, if that's a term, as you want, or you may just want, hey, just give me the cup of coffee. I don't care about brew methods and roast profiles. I just want it to here because I need to grab my coffee to get on to the next thing, and it's my fuel and my energy. But it's been fun to have a show place for a place that we're proud of, that we can highlight what we do for people that can come and gather. You can have meetings there. It's a place that you want to come and stay. And so that was one place that we did that on a real rough scale in the roastery and warehouse space. But to have a place now that's a place that can be a destination spot, it makes it really fun. It's a fun work environment.
Yeah, I've had several meetings there myself, actually. So.
Yeah, and it's all demographics. It's fun to see. You have all kinds that come. No one, coffee shouldn't be intimidating.
Yeah.
It should be a place that you feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah. Let's talk about the name. You want to explain to everybody what EOTE is?
You look at that, and it's funny because I told you I went to Albania, and that was kind of the genesis for us. But then after that, it wasn't a few years later, I got to go to Uganda and Kenya on a different trip. And I'm flying home, and I'm sitting with the beverage napkin trying to think, okay, we're going to do this coffee business. I want to have a name, and Ends of the Earth kept coming up. And so and it was inspired for me from Acts 1:8. And it says, and the Holy Spirit will come upon you with power, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Yeah. And so I just wrote out ends of the earth. I put EOTE, and it was a long flight from Nairobi back to New York. Had a lot of time to think. It's like, okay, we started this out of my garage in Oklahoma, and we provide a home for boys. And so I put that French carrot over the O, because really this was the birthplace of our coffee company. Was out of my garage on this boys ranch. And then coffee in Spanish is cafe, and you've got the accent on the E. And so really I just made up a word and used the phonetics. And you look at that and you don't know, is that French West African? Is it Spanish? And you just kind of smile, it stands for Ends of the Earth. And it's fun when people see the light bulb come on and see that that's an acronym, and it really has so much more meaning to than just coffee. I mean, there's a social aspect, there's a community, a family aspect, there's a deep spiritual meaning that's important to us as our family, and our partners are invested in it. But the fun part is that you don't just give everybody all of that when they come in. You just, as we develop relationships and people ask, we can dive as deep into that as you want to. But that's really the meaning behind EOTE. It stands for Ends of the Earth. And we go to the ends of the earth for great coffee, but you also go to the ends of the earth for people that you care about, who are in need or in a crisis. You'll do anything for them. I found out real quick when we lived in Chandler on the ranch that you found out real quick who were your in the ditch friends. When you've got a crisis at 2:00 in the morning, who will call and come to your rescue. And then it's really easy to do that for that person when you've been someone that's been on the receiving end of that as well. So there's some grace and some mercy and some perseverance and dedication that also comes with that. When you've received that, it's a lot easier to give it. And so we're highly relational. You can't not be relational and be in the coffee business. Same with you with Skydance. It's very, very relationship driven. You also go to the ends of the earth to find the beans, right? You want Some
to tell
of the best
people about
coffee
that?
comes in the most hard to reach places. They don't grow in nice little rows right next to the street. They grow up in rugged territory. Most of coffee, if you think about the equator and you think about a belt, a few degrees north and south, you go all the way around the world, that's where the majority of coffee is grown. And so the daily wage for most places in the world for picking and harvesting coffee is about $2 a day.
Wow.
And so once you've been and seen all the work that it takes to grow the coffee, to prune and create the environment for that coffee shrub to thrive, and then the people that pick it, produce it, wash it, it doesn't just show up magically in a 150-pound bag, all clean, in a Grain Pro sack. I mean, there's a lot of steps that happen, and it's painful and it's tedious. And I love the metaphor of coffee, because you think about that as far as life. Some of the best things come with struggle. They come with pain. They come with hard work. Well, then we get to coffee and we pour it into a roaster that will go from 400 to maybe 430 degrees. And then we grind it, and then you either pour it over scalding water over it, or you put boiling water and pressure, and you express the coffee out of it. And all those processes feel painful, which kind of sounds like 2020. We feel like that's kind of all we've experienced. But when you get it to here, and you get the aromas, you get the flavors, you get the taste, you're like, oh, I mean, if we can look in life and we can embrace the process, even though a lot of the process is really painful, if we can look to the end result of what that is. I mean, that's one thing I like most about coffee is you go through a lot of hard stuff, but the payoff and the reward at the end is something special. And I've used that metaphor just in my own life when things get tough and they get hard. Then what's the good that's going to come from this? As we've gone through the quarantine and COVID, my wife and I, we don't want to miss out on what God is teaching us in this process. There's a lot of things that's been filtered out. You filter things out of beer. I filter things out of coffee. And the filter purifies things, makes it better. What are the things that are getting filtered out of my life during this season that we don't want to put back in? We're being more relational. We're being more intentional with our time, how we invest our time and our resources. There's no sports. There weren't restaurants for a while. There were so many things that you couldn't do. But it forced us to have some margin and to go into more deep, intimate, intentional relationships with our friends and our family and our community. So from that standpoint, that's been a good thing, but it's not fun to be filtered. It's not fun to be steeped or roasted or picked or pruned. And sometimes you prune a tree so it'll grow more and be more productive, but sometimes the pruning gets a little close to the trunk, and it can be painful.
A lot of guys, and I know you're this way, you like to get out into the outdoors and in that peace and quiet. And during that time, you can learn a lot about yourself.
Right.
I've kind of noticed something similar to that happening during the COVID situation. Like I've learned some things about myself and come to appreciate certain things like family and stuff like that more during COVID, because that's during this time, a lot of times that's all you have.
Right.
What have you learned about yourself during COVID that maybe you didn't know before?
Man, there's some things that I saw that were not real attractive.
Like, same here.
There's some things that, that's not really one of my favorite character qualities. I think one of the ongoing conversations that Jeannie and I have had is that we look back 4 years ago when we were in a really, probably the darkest, personally, probably the darkest, hardest time of my life it was 4 years ago was kind of my crash, but it was building up for probably, and I'm really honest, for probably 3 or 4 years. So for us, learning how to deal with stress, anxiety, fear, depression, fear of losing your job, fear of funding, all the things that we put our identity, our security, our hope in, being in the matter of moments. And those things that we put stock in, even the stock market, those things can be erased. And when all that is gone, what's left standing? And so for us, I think paramount is our faith. And is this real, or is it's something cultural? I profess to be a follower of Jesus, but so many times the way I live my personal life, my business life, my family life, you would think that I was maybe more of an atheist than a believer and a follower. And so it really forced me 4 years ago to reevaluate who I am, when those things do come up, how do I respond to them? And so it really prepared us for this season we're in 2020. It was funny, all of the grandiose things and clever gimmicky things we were going to have about 2020 and goals and visions and purpose and clarity. Well, we're getting the clarity in ways that we never dreamed. And so I think for us, we realized that the things that we faced 4 years ago, we got a little bit of company now. Before I thought I was the only one going through this, and it was isolating. Well, we've gone through some isolation now. We realize that everybody are facing these hardships. And so for us, how can I live with hope? How can I live with peace? How can I live with little or with much? And how can I have contentment regardless of what the economic situation is around me? And so that's just a constant evaluation, a self-evaluation that we have to have as a family. And how do we invest our time? How do we invest our money? Where does my identity and security really come from? And so I can give you the church answer. But that's not always the real answer. And so I think for us as a family, those are things that we're learning is, how do we have purpose? What's my hope and my passion, and what's my mission in life? And I love, there's a graph that my friend Jeremy Kubicek uses with Giant, and it's called a peace index. And you may be familiar with this. It's easy to draw on a napkin. In fact, Jeremy met me the week before I had my crash. And Jeremy has been a lifesaver. All the content through Giant Worldwide has been something that it's just, I'd heard some of that stuff before, but when you need it, you grab onto it and you hear it in a way that you've never heard it before. And I love the Peace Index because he drew me 3 circles. One is your purpose, one is your place, purpose, place, and people. What are your people? And
I've got mine right here.
Okay, and you rank all of those 1 to 100, divide it by 3, and in the middle is your Peace Index. Well, 4 years ago I scored that, and it was a 28. Which is a pretty low number. That's an F. But if I was really honest, it was probably closer to an 18. I would say today, 4 years later, I'm probably at an 88 to a 90. Because I've discovered or rediscovered my purpose, my people, in my inner circle and in my community, and then what my purpose is in life, and how I live that out as an overflow instead of my identity coming from my success and my production or how successful or unsuccessful that I was. And so that's a tool. When I start feeling anxious, okay, what is it? Okay, I'm anxious about, no grocery stores, or all the restaurant business shut down for us almost overnight and lost about 40% of our business like that. Okay, it's okay to be concerned about that, but I don't need to be controlled and wrecked by anxiety. I can be aware of it and address it and continue on. But before, some of those things are just so debilitating. You look up and you're in a downward spiral. And so I think that's one little tool that's been a good tool for me that I got to put it in my toolbox 4 years ago, and it keeps coming out, and it's just always a good reminder that I'm headed in the right direction.
We just went through that practice with Jay last week, and one of the things it causes you to do is to really be honest with yourself and objective, and we what I realized was, so one of my strengths is purpose, is really one of my strengths, and then my weakness is health, like physical health and stuff, because I don't work out like I should. Luckily I have a wonderful woman at home who's gone vegan, and so that's I've actually gotten a little healthier in my diet thanks to that. But I also noticed that he had asked, which one of those areas actually drives you the most.
What's your driver?
And for me, obviously, it was purpose. And I've also noticed that sometimes that's also the stronger I feel in my purpose, the weaker I get in my health, because I tend to justify in my head that I've got this big purpose. Everything I'm doing with work and all the other things I'm doing, like with the podcast or different organizations I'm involved in, that all these purposes are so important that I've got to go take care of that first.
Right.
And it's easy to just go past the health part. It's hard to kind of keep your mind on the idea that you have to take care of yourself first.
Right. Well, it feels selfish. And I love the analogy of, they always, when you fly, they always talk about putting the mask on first, and then put it on your kids and your neighbor. Well, I was turning as blue as that coffee bag, putting on everyone else's masks, and I hit rock bottom. I didn't do a good job. If I'm not healthy, and I'm not functioning out of my overflow and potential, then I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good person to cast vision and leadership in EOTE Coffee. I'm not a good neighbor. I'm on the floor. My edgy metaphor is that this is a metaphor. I literally ended up in my youngest daughter's Hello Kitty blanket 4 years ago. There's not anything attractive about a grown man being in a Hello Kitty blanket. It is not a man card punch. But I had gotten to the point that I brought comfort and security and all these things for everybody else. But out of my pride and trying to be self-sufficient, I didn't ever receive that. And you think about a blanket, a blanket is comfort, it's security. We need to have that blanket surrounding us. I mean, whether you're 13 or 30 or 80, you've got to be healthy spiritually, emotionally, physically.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. It's easy to let my physical health suffer, my emotional health, having margin, that I have balance. So when I go home, I'm no longer, EOTE Coffee or your Skydance, but you're just Jake.
Yeah.
And you've got family and other relationships and other things that are also important parts of you, but we tend to be so focused that we are going to be successful over here at the expense of all these other things over here.
Yeah.
And if I'm successful in this area and I'm a failure as a husband or a father or someone in my community, then it doesn't matter how successful Willow Springs was or EOTE Coffee or all these other things.
What do you have in place that reminds you of those things, right? So it's like you've got all these aspects of your life or your business that you're trying to balance and keep all of them at an optimal level where they need to be. And it's easy to forget about a certain area because you're focusing on, maybe right now I'm really focusing on my health, for instance, right? And then you're trying to get that, now that causes you to lose focus in another area. What are some things that you have in your life that keep you? Is it your work with Giant? Is it work with other people that you mentor? Or what are the things that kind of keep you reminding yourself that, oh man, I've got to pay attention to all these different areas? Because when me and Jay from Giant met last week, that woke me up a little bit about some of these areas. Doing that exercise you just talked about, there's areas that I was weaker in that I didn't even realize I was weak in until I just thought about it.
Yeah.
I didn't even think to think about it.
Yeah.
So what does somebody do to keep that stuff on the front of their mind?
I got a buddy that's been a mentor and a good friend to me that his phrase is "remember not to forget."
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, remember. I'm just like, okay, what was I not supposed to forget?
Yeah.
And for me, my two probably areas of growth opportunities are being still and being quiet. I'm not very good at either one of those.
Yeah.
But I am at my best when I get up about 6 in the morning, pour my coffee, go sit on the back porch, and just be still and just be quiet.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you hear when you are still and quiet, like the train that we hear right now that's across the road. If the music was going and we're going 100 miles an hour, I would never hear that train.
Yeah. Or if you'd just taken some bad call, or if you got up early in the morning and checked your phone first and got a bad email you didn't like, you might not even hear that train.
No, and that starts your day. And I'm reading a book now by John Eldredge. It's called Get Your Life Back. And there's an app that he's got on his that it's attached to the book. It's called the 1 Minute Pause. And I think for me, learning how to pause.
Yeah.
If I do that in the morning and I get up, and for me, if I get up and have my coffee and just be quiet, I love going through the YouVersion app and reading my Bible and going through devotion. But me being type A and driven, I say it as a joke, but it's true. I can do a 30-day devotion in about 3 days.
Yeah.
And so what have I done? It's supposed to give me direction and peace, but I'm so worried about getting to the next and getting to the end. I want to finish. And instead of being in the moment and enjoying the journey and the process. And looking back at my life, probably 6 a.m. to about 8:30, those 2.5 hours are the hardest part of my day. And me being aware of that. So if I will get up and just be still and just be quiet, get in the Word, be quiet, listen instead of talk, and let God speak to me. That's the crazy part. Is that if I listen, I hear Him. And it's not an audible voice like Charleston Heston or pick your booming God voice. But I mean, I'll get clarity and I'll get peace when I do that. And I try not to check my email, try not to read the news, try not to do all those things or see what sales we have come in until I get to work. And I like what Jeremy talked about, is talk about triggers. So spend the morning doing some reading. I'll put some worship on. I'm in the shower, or put some music on as I'm driving to work. And then I'll start checking things. And even on the way home, just pick a spot that you unplug. So when I get out when I get off of onto 235 and I'm heading back to Edmond home, I try really hard to not be on my phone, not take a call, I put a podcast on, I put some music on, or I do something crazy and put nothing on and open up the sunroof and just drive home and decompress and clear my head. And when I turn into the neighborhood, I just kind of go, oh.
Yeah.
And I can walk in the door and I can be Todd, I can be dad, I can be husband, and try to leave my bag in the car and being engaged. And what I like about that book about getting your life back is just putting some disciplines on myself. You and I were talking about brewing coffee and brewing beer a minute ago. You're talking about a regulator plate.
Yeah.
I've got to have some regulators in my life, and I've got to have some areas that I know that if I don't have those, I end up in the Hello Kitty blanket again.
Yeah.
And I had a friend over, and we had an infant over at our house this last weekend, and they were laying in the Hello Kitty blanket, and my hands didn't start sweating.
Yeah.
I didn't start breathing hard. My eyes didn't start twitching. I saw the Hello Kitty blanket, and it was a good reminder. Like, oh wow, yeah. I mean, 4 years ago, man, I was in a rough place.
Yeah.
But I've had people and tools and things that have helped me navigate through those when those hard times do come. That I can have a little healthier response to whatever that stress or that challenge is. And for me, it's starting out my morning. Because when I do it, oh my gosh, like, why would I not ever do this? Would I have to get up early? I try not to schedule an early meeting either. Sometimes I've got a 7:45 meeting in the morning. Yeah. But I'm at my best if I don't have a meeting till about 9. Yeah. So I can go through that kind of pregame ritual so I can be ready for my day. Yeah. So I mean, that's the one thing that's taken me 53 years to learn, to have some margin and have some self-discipline, that I am taking care of me so I can be more productive. I can actually do more in a less amount of time and be more efficient and get things done and not feel guilty that I spent that first 2 hours of the day just invested in me.
Being responsible with your time management.
And that's the hardest thing for me to do. Yeah. And when I don't do it, I pay the consequences for it. So I'm learning slowly. Yeah. I'm a slow learner.
That's a difficult thing for me too, man. I almost have like this addiction or like a high that comes along with business, like something happening for the business, this meeting that's going to make a big difference in our business, or this meeting is going to do this for our business. And it's like I get this high about it. Oh, can you meet at 8 a.m.? I'm like, yeah, I'll just agree to it.
I meet at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Because it's like almost like a sale, Right. It's like there's this high you get from achieving something like that,
Right.
And it's all of a sudden you just forget all about that morning routine, that I got to go over there and get the Chemex out and make some EOTE coffee and kind of do that little meditation that comes with
even
that.
the ritual of just making. That's what I love about a pour over is it takes you 3 minutes to slow down.
Yeah, it stops you.
And I breathe.
Yep.
And I'm smelling the coffee. I'm smelling the aromas. I'm smelling the things that make that coffee unique. And that whole process, half the time I'm not even aware that I'm even doing it.
So many people ask me too, he's like, man, why do you want to go through all this for coffee? Why don't you just have a coffee maker?
Just have a Keurig. Just hit the button and here you go. It's like that's sacrilegious.
You don't understand. The coffee's great and all, but you're missing this whole experience.
And that's so much. I think just a life is to enjoy the journey instead of the destination. Yep. And I'm so hell-bent sometimes to get to, it's like you're going on vacation. We're not stopping. We're going to get there, and by golly, we're going to have fun. And everyone's mad at each other and crying or angry before you ever get there because you're just so rigid and don't enjoy the process.
That's the one thing about entrepreneurship, too, is just just the nature of entrepreneurship is you're busy all the time, especially in the early stages, and you're doing everything. You're involved in every step, and it just seems like it takes a lot of, to me, strategizing, planning out your day, planning out your morning and your evenings, but also that just responsibility to yourself to take that time out. It's hard to take it sometimes,
but it sure does pay dividends when you do. And we still feel like in a lot of ways we're still in the startup stage, and we're you're working, you're really focused on your cost of goods and your labor and all those things. Any gains that you may have had up to March, you can look up and all that can be totally wiped out. How do we play catch up? And also, is God really big enough to help me do this and to get us through that so we are profitable? And so, I think part of it too is as you're learning part of leadership, who is the best person for this task with the budget and the resources, who can do this better and delegate that. So we can have vision and focus on growing the business, not just operating the business. And that's when you're a startup, it's a balance of both. You don't have the luxury of having a huge organization. You do a little bit of everything.
So I feel blessed a little bit, or kind of lucky, that we didn't move into our new building before COVID happened, because when we move into that building, it's almost like that's when the business really takes off, or that's when we're really starting our business,
right?
Even though we're already out there. But I can only imagine, having just moved into it maybe right before COVID happened, and how challenging financially that would be for us, because it's so much more of an expensive building to be in.
Right.
Everything about being in that stage of our company's life is going to be more expensive, and more like everything has to really work at that point.
Right.
But so one of the things I've taken from these 90 days or whatever we've had now is that, in the Bible, it talks a lot about building your home on a solid foundation, right? And what I've learned from COVID so far is how important that's going to be when we start this stage of our business, that we're built on a solid foundation.
Right.
How we spend money, how we get money, just our whole financial situation. And a lot of the businesses that are really going to be hurting starting like now and over the next 6 months are the ones that didn't have a solid foundation, or too much debt, or whatever those things are that's put them on a rocky foundation. What are some things that with EOTE that you feel like you've been able to see during this COVID situation? Like we talked about, what you've learned about yourself. What have you learned about EOTE and that foundation that you're on, and what it is about EOTE that's going to hold that business through this challenging time?
I think there's a book that my uncle introduced me to. It's called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. And the metaphor is a little crass, but the whole metaphor is that when you have a case of toilet paper, which is probably appropriate with the quarantine, because for some reason everyone started buying up and hoarding toilet paper. So when you have cases and cases of toilet paper, you'll use it like this. And I've got 4 girls in my house, and I'm pretty sure when they go into the bathroom, this is how they use the toilet paper. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
But when you don't have very much, you start using it like this, or you start using it like this. And so I think just being nimble in how you spend. You don't have to buy brand new. You don't have to buy most expensive. You've certain things in the coffee industry and brewing. There's certain things that you want to pay for, and you want to pay for quality because you want to spend the money right, but spend it smart, whether it be your equipment or your product, where it's the cans, or for you, the hops, the water, all those factors. For us, it's the quality of bean, it's the quality of the roaster, it's all these things. You've got to spend the money right, but just being really nimble and start tweaking the things. And if you start tweaking those things, what's going to fall out is profit margin. Yeah. And so, but it does. It takes a good foundation, like you said. But also, I think it takes vision and purpose. And just because we've always done it this way, doesn't mean that you always have to do it that way. Yeah. So we've got a new landscape and a new set of circumstances. So we have to think a little bit different. The example I gave a minute ago is, if you had told me 6 months ago, we did a soft opening. August, September, they end up being the grand opening, because we was like, we would rather grow like this and instead of like this. We never had a grand opening. We just opened, and we got through the hot months, and we got through Christmas. We looked up, we had a great January, a great February, and you can just look on the graph. You can just look on the spreadsheet. You go, oh, there's March 15th. Yeah. It's like it just went just like that. Yeah. But if you just said 6 months ago that we were going to be doing curbside delivery 6 months ago out of a basement, I'm going, you're really silly. Yeah. There's no way that we're running to the curb. But the need was, people didn't feel comfortable coming in. They wanted a drive-through service. So how do we had kind of bragged about our niche as kind of this basement coffee shop that kind of has this speakeasy, kind of hard to find place that you want to be just hard enough to find, but yet everybody knows about it, and it's worth walking down the stairs to go find it. But you know what? We have a need to do curbside, and we look up, and within 2 weeks, we've got the app. You can order, pay online, and ring us as you're driving in, and we're going to be there with your iced latte or your Americano, your espresso.
Yeah.
And it's another thing now that we've been able to add to our repertoire that we didn't have before, and we never would have pursued had it not been the COVID and the shutdown. So I think it's being open to doing things differently.
Yeah.
And what do people want? What do they need? And how do we take coffee in this experience? And if you can't just come in and sit down because the environment changed, everyone wants their coffee in the morning. And so wherever there's a product is, how can we be nimble enough to change with the circumstances?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of trial and error too. We've done some things. Oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Or we've thought, oh, this is going to be great. It's like, you know what? That didn't work at all. We worked really hard, and that wasn't real effective, and it wasn't a good customer experience. And there's so many things that we could have done better. But I think it's just like Thomas Edison and the light bulb. I think not being afraid to fail, and what did we learn from that? Yeah. What can we take from that and do better the next time?
Yeah. Here's a broad question for you, and I'm sure whatever's on your heart will show you the right way to answer. But just what's your faith done for your business? Like, how does your faith show up in EOTE? Because since I've known you, that's what a lot of people say you're the coffee guy.
Okay.
When I think of you, the first word that pops in my head is Christian.
Well, thank you.
And so that's a lot of times I'll pop in there for coffee when maybe I don't need coffee.
Okay.
Maybe I'll run into Todd. Like, man, I could really use a pick me up, a spiritual pick me up. Yeah. That's what I think of you as. But how is that shown up in your business?
I've got a buddy that actually I met in Albania, and he's from Tennessee, and the metaphor that he uses was turtle on a fence post. Have you ever heard that metaphor? I'm just a turtle on a fence post. Well, if you look and you ever see a turtle on a fence post, you know it didn't get there by itself.
Oh, yeah.
Someone's reached down and they've put that turtle on the fence post. And I think with my own life, when people look at me, they'll say, man, Todd's not near smart enough to do that on his own.
Yeah.
Or he sure wasn't attractive or witty or cool or romantic enough to get Jeannie on his own. God brought Jeannie into his life, or the opportunities of the EOTE. I think that when we can be real with each other, it's easy for us to, especially in social media and Facebook and Instagram, to always put our airbrushed Photoshop best image forward. But I think what people are looking is for other people that are authentic, who are authentic. I can't say that. And being real about our struggles, being real about our successes, and how do we make it through that? And so I hope beyond coffee, I hope you like our coffee, and I hope you like the atmosphere, and I hope that you want to drink a whole lot of it. But more than anything, we want to help connect people to what's going to give them peace and hope and joy in life. And I don't know any other way than when they discover what it means to have a relationship with God and a relationship with Jesus Christ. Yeah. And that is not religion. It's just authentic. There's a series out right now called Chosen, which is a powerful crowd-funded series that when you think about, you've been chosen, you've chose me. It's like, wow, that's pretty powerful. And all my brokenness, all my character flaws, that God still chooses me, and He paid a pretty high price for me to have that relationship. Then that changes everything. It changes how I see myself. Finally, it took me age 48 to 53, to view myself different. I feel that I have something to offer. That I've got something that people are attracted to, and if they see that, it's not Todd, it's God. My sister gives me a hard time. She goes, your name rhymes with God, and you've got God has never had a Todd complex. Yeah. But sometimes Todd thinks that I'm the center of the universe, and I'm really not. Yeah. It's really not about me. Yeah. And when I trust God enough that if I look for opportunities in my community to help make someone else's day better, somewhere along the way, my needs are going to get met. Yeah. And if our goal is to help someone have a better day through coffee, you know what? You can make a difference, and you can make $1. There's a book out called Remarkable, and you can be purpose-driven in how you live your life, how you run your business, how you live in your family and your friends, and you can make a difference. Yeah. And if people see God instead of yourself, then that's attractive. And I think the creative piece is that we're all different, and we're living in a hard point in history here. That if we will put our focus on God, than the differences that we have with each other. It's a lot easier to work out when I
Yeah.
see you as my brother.
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned more about Native American history and your culture by you and I just having a cup of coffee
Yeah.
or sitting in a hot, sweaty warehouse, or
Yep.
now that we're in a nicer place.
Yep.
I mean, to learn those things
Yeah.
because I've asked
Yeah.
and I've listened and I've learned, and we all deal with brokenness. We all deal with identity issues, and we've all got parenting or a father wound. And so when we learn from that, how can I be a better friend? How can I be a better father? How can I be more engaged and be intentional in how I just do life across the board?
Yeah.
Then if we don't color code and categorize people, but we're just a good neighbor.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many things that we would see a difference
Yep.
in Oklahoma, in our community, in our country, if we would all choose to have that type of a mindset.
Yeah.
But it takes effort. It also, God has got to change our perspective, because on my own, man, I'm selfish. I like what I want, when I want, where I want, how I want.
Yep.
And it's easy to be wrapped up in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's where I think God has wrecked me. Really, my fall 4 years ago was probably the best, worst thing that ever happened to me. And I would never wish that on anybody else.
Yeah.
But it took me coming to end of myself. I was doing good things, man. We helped start a ranch. We were pointing to brokenness and other families and all ethnic groups. But at the end of the day, I wasn't taking the same medicine
Yeah.
that I was handing out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that for me, I real quick, the analogy I love is sometimes we, as men, we like to categorize, saying we got our sports life over here. Here's our business life right here. Here's our church life. Here's our family life.
Yeah.
And what I like is if you look at the elementary tray for the cafeteria, the tray is life. And there's all these other little compartments.
Yeah.
But God wants to have, God gives us the tray, and it's all His.
Yeah.
And so how I live in business, how I live in sport, my hobbies, all my passions, coffee, all these things, I've got to give them to Him.
Yeah.
And then let you have control over that.
Yeah.
And so if you want to move me off the ranch, it was hard moving to the ranch to start it. It was even harder to move away from it because of a personal crisis, God called me out of it. But I did what God called me to do, and it was start it.
Yeah.
I've got big dreams and hopes as an entrepreneur for EOTE Coffee. And I've got things this could be something I do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But God could have a change of plans too. And so I think for me as an entrepreneur is learning to have vision and passion and purpose, but also hold on to things loosely, because at the end of the day, it belongs to God.
Yeah.
Which makes me a better steward. And I'm learning how to trust Him more in that. And it's a journey. I don't have it figured out,
Yeah.
but that's where I'm still learning to trust. I can trust God with so many things, but one of the things for me, the hardest thing is to trust my family. You think about health and safety. Well, I can trust over here, but you know what? What if we do get sick? What if we are in an accident? Well, God's going, no, do you trust me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the thing that Jeremy Kubicek asked me about 4 years ago. He goes, what if you trusted God with the ranch and your provision and your next thing? You think He's big enough to do that? And my immediate answer was, heck no.
Yeah.
But it took me that was October. It took me from October to December going, yeah, He can. And I do have to make a change.
Yeah.
And to watch Him do that and watch Him always provide, never how I thought or I want, and rarely on my timing.
Yeah.
But to watch Him do it, I should, oh yeah, that's who my father is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my daddy.
Yeah.
But like I have all the faith in the world for what He did yesterday, but I don't know how in the world He's going to take care of tomorrow in this meeting I've got at 7:45 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And He's going, Todd,
Yeah.
don't you know me?
Yeah.
And so that's where I've got to get up in the morning and spend time with Him,
Yeah.
so I can hear the whisper, the still small voice, so I can make better business decisions. I can make better emotional decisions. I can make better family decision, and so it's all of it. It's as men, it's easy to compartmentalize things.
Yep.
I don't understand this. My wife can have 5 conversations going on in her head all at the same time and think about me and our 4 girls and this room she's decorating and this thing over here, and I got to get groceries, and I live in one section at a time.
Yeah.
But when He has all of it, it's a lot less anxiety provoking.
I think you said something important when you said it's a journey. You're trying to figure it all out. And I feel like even with me sometimes, but like a lot of people, I feel like they find themselves in a bad spot when they feel like they're supposed to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And the fact that they know they don't, because none of us do.
Yeah.
The fact that they don't have it all figured out creates a lot of anxiety for them and a lot of stress. Yeah. And I don't know. I get that sometimes. Yeah. Like it'll be like a insecurity type thing. But if I somehow get reminded that, man, enjoy that. Like actually accept it for what that is and accept it as part of a journey that you're trying to figure something out. I always use the phrase that we're building our story, you know, and 5-10 years from now, somebody's going to have me on their podcast or show talking about Skydance and how great it is, but they're not going to enjoy the story as much if I say, yeah, I had a couple millionaires come and we were fully funded from day one and everything went great. There's never been really any stress. Like nobody enjoys that story. No. And so I actually accept these challenges when they happen, or the fact that I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I love it. And I tell myself that's going to be our story 5 years from now. We're going to sit here and talk about the time that this virus came and almost put us out of business.
And how did you do it? And I guess what I like about you is that I know there's a whole lot more to Jake than Skydance. Yeah. And when we finally realize that what we do is not who we are. Yeah. Man, that's powerful. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, you know, that's the platform and the vehicle to earn a living and earn some money. Yeah. But it's not who Jake is. Yeah. And EOTE is not who Todd is. Yep. And when we finally figure that piece out, we can operate from a different position and be a lot more effective. Yeah. Purpose is a big word. I had a friend call me who lives up in Canada. We used to do business together in the gaming business, and he had saw one of my a vlog that I did. I just had something I felt like I needed to say about, you know, what's going on with the protests and people fighting and not getting along. And he saw that and he felt like he needed to call me. And he said that he noticed that I'm a different person than I was, you know, 6, 7, 8 years ago when we first met. And the word he used was that he can tell that I have a purpose now, you know. And just even though I felt like I was already doing more than just making beer, I had, you know, that just hearing somebody say that really motivated me to, you know, think about the impact that I'm having on other people, and how can I have more impact? How can I have a bigger impact and more of an impact on more people? Like spread it out over more people as well. And man, I love brewing beer, and I love business, but there's lots of mornings that I'm tired, and the brewing of the beer and the business is not enough to get me to jump right out of bed. But man, impact on people, on somebody else, whether it's me being a mentor to somebody or me being able to change somebody's life, that's the kind of stuff that pops you right out of bed. Well, you tell me a story about your dad and the impact that he's had on you. Yeah. And I mean, those are the things. That's what gets you up. It's not, you know, we did 20 roasts today. You know, we put our roaster through the paces, but that's not what gets me through the day. It's the conversations along the way throughout the day that you get to pour into other people. Yeah. And be poured into you, because there's days that my tank's empty and you come in, or a Jay Sampson, or these guys from Giant who office above us that are like drinking out of a deep well. You're like, okay, it may not be, let me get through the day. Let me get through the next hour. Let me get through the next minute. Yeah. And I think one of the things that they've shared that helped me change my mindset was their 80-20 or their 70-30 rule. And you should spend probably 70% of your time doing the things that are your strength. Yeah. If you're right-handed, it's the right-handed things that you do that just come naturally. Yeah. There's always the 30%. There's always the cleanup after the roast, or the canning, or closing the sale, or collections, or all those things that are not any fun, but just comes with it. But I'd spent most of my time so upside down. I wasn't living the 70-30 rule. I was living the 20-80 rule. Yeah. So much of what I did on the ranch were not my gifts, not my strength, not my abilities, not things that were life-giving. And I did it because you founded a nonprofit and you had to. Yeah. But if you, as an entrepreneur, what are my strengths?
Yeah.
What part of that can I lead and share the vision and the purpose? But then what are these other areas that I'm not good at, that I need the financial folks, I need the strategic folks, I need folks that I need help with capital and marketing and all the things that tie all that together. That this doesn't just fall out of the sky and happen by itself, just like any of the beers that you brew. I mean, from the recipe to the labeling, all those things. There's so many people that are involved in that. I think the fun part as a founder is that when you get to brag on and champion the folks that have helped you get it to here, and call people up to their potential. I mean, that's what gets me up during the day. Is I get to have impact and pour into people, and not just be a leech that just sucks people dry.
That's probably one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to with moving into our new space and having a tap room and bringing on staff. It's something I've really missed from managing casinos was having a team under me and watching somebody go from security guard to a manager, and living their dreams and that kind of impact, that's what I've missed over the past year and a half.
And helping them launch them in their own dreams, their own careers.
Yeah.
And, they've had a good mentor. They've learned business. They've learned character. They've learned work ethic. They've learned how to care for other people.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be your neighbor across the street. I mean, that's just as hard as things have been. I think there's also hope. Yeah, and we kind of touched on what the deep well where the hope comes from. But when you have hope, I mean, you can go a lot longer through the hard times. I was reading some book. No, it was a buddy of mine, David Skidmore, that said, I think adversity is the birthplace of hope. And you have to go through some hard times sometimes to have vision and have hope and have purpose. And when that's discovered through when you're in the fire, it's sure worth it when you get on the other side. Like, wow, that was painful, but I learned a lot through that process. And I think that's probably for some. I mean, it's a great opportunity. It's like, for some, I hope it's not an opportunity that's missed, because we go right back to the things that we'd always done. And we jam up our schedule and put in 80 hours in a 40-hour week and go back to doing the things we had done before.
I'll tell you, that's probably doing this podcast, if it does nothing else, the fact that it reminds me of things by having these conversations with different entrepreneurs. It makes me think of these, like we talked about earlier, the things that I forget about.
Remember not to forget.
Having these conversations about this stuff on a weekly basis with other entrepreneurs. A lot of people have asked me, like, man, how much money are you going to make on the podcast? I'll probably never make a penny on the podcast. It's not what this is for. What the real thing behind it is for me to be able to interact with people like me and learn from those people and let some people tag along and go on that journey with me as well. And I think, like, that's a big, I'll tell you, we talked about impact. So shortly after, the second, third episode that we put out, I got 2 messages on Facebook from 2 of our IOA tribal members. One of them's a cousin of mine, and he said that he just wanted to let me know that I inspired him to take entrepreneurship classes at OSU. And he's telling me all about his plans, what he wants to do, the business he wants to start, And then I had another tribal member message me asking, if I had any advice on how to start a company, all the legal side of it and that kind of stuff, And it's just like, wow, like everything that I hoped would happen one day of just one person being inspired or, thinking that, hey, there's a Native American who's doing things in business. Maybe I can.
Absolutely.
Like, that's already happened, So it's like, man, how much impact can we have if we just keep doing this?
Keep on
just
and,
keep
and,
going
and ask people to come, invite people to join you on the journey.
Tag along for the journey. So,
okay.
So on the EOTE, on the business side, what's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where's EOTE? What's EOTE look like?
Yeah, I think dream or vision is that we would like to continue to grow on the wholesale end. We're working on developing a presence in Oklahoma. When your name is ends of the earth, you can't just stay in one little bitty space. So we would like to grow, but we want to grow responsibly. But we'd also, we're in a spot right now with a coffee shop. We probably did all the wrong things, and yet in a basement with tough signage and kind of the speakeasy kind of feel. But as we find the right spaces and locations, we'd like to expand the coffee shop piece of that as well. We're on Amazon Prime. We've in some local grocery stores with Homeland and Uptown, and we're about to launch with Reese's in the eastern part of the state that we're really excited about. But we want to have impact. Well beyond sales goals and growth as a company. And so that's where it's like, as we do that, we're also bringing people along and helping develop them personally, professionally, in their own life as well. And so as that grows, we'll continue to have the infrastructure, but those are I think the next things is that we would love to outgrow this 23 kilo roaster and be needing to move back into some warehouse space. So we've got a full bag roaster, a 90 to 120 kilo roaster that we can we can do 800 to 1,000 pounds a day right now. Well, we step on up, we can start doing that hourly. And so that's kind of the mind-boggling part. When you've started in your garage and doing a quarter pound at a time. It's just be able to scale responsibly and scale sustainably. That's where we want to go and bring value, not just to our investors, but bring value to our community and the people that we impact in our community, the people that we employ. So it sounds, in that regard, it's really simple, but it's being consistent. And doing those little bitty things. Man, that's what makes an athlete great. It's the little bitty things, those little bitty things that you do in your mechanics that make a golfer great, that make a baseball player great, that, basketball stars, they've made that 3-point shot thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So I think the consistency and the discipline in that and having a passion for quality and excellence and not just the product that you produce, but how you treat the people around you. We can have a great cup of coffee and we just be a turkey. You're not going to come back for coffee.
You ever get used to seeing people come into the shop and just really enjoying your coffee after you've been back there slaying over the roaster and for somebody in order to look over and see friends having a good time together?
That never gets old. It's like seeing someone brag on your child. It's like, every time I hear someone, give it up for one of my girls, you have the proud dad moment. And so I don't think the proud dad moment ever goes away, and I'm excited for you to do your grand opening and you just get to see the look on your face with your proud dad moment when you move out of the warehouse space to have a place that is a showroom that people can come and gather and
there's something about somebody sitting down and enjoying the product that you made and or like what you talk about a lot with the coffee shop is people building relationships inside the coffee shop. And doing that with your coffee in between them and being the centerpiece of what's happening in that interaction and that relationship that's building, I mean, I tell the story a lot about my dad. The first time I was of age to be able to go out and have a beer with my dad I took him, like maybe the only time in my entire life that I can remember him skipping work. This was a guy that never called off.
Wow.
He would have like almost about to die from a tooth, and he would go to work. But so I got him to meet me at Tapworks one day and have a beer. And I can just remember having that conversation about, man, it'd be cool if we had our beer up there and to see somebody come over to the bar and order that beer, and watch that happen. And so the feeling of when the first time I ever sold beer to Tapworks, was like a really emotional deal.
Oh, wow.
But I think a lot about all of those times that it wasn't necessarily even just about the beer, but I can remember a lot of very clear memories of me and my dad having a conversation about certain topics or certain things going on. And I can remember the beer I had at that time and where I was at, and just how important that was
as a trigger
for me.
As a memory.
And like, that's what I can't wait for. Is to be I'll probably tear up the first time a father and a son comes in,
I can't wait to high five
Yeah.
you when I
Yeah.
get to see that happen.
yeah. So just even thinking about it now brings me to tears, But
Well, that's what gets you up in the morning.
yeah,
That's what gets me up in
purpose.
the morning. We both know a guy that talks about people over projects.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if we had that mentality,
Yeah.
then I think God honors that, and you'll
Yeah.
be successful because it's not just about yourself; it's about other people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what we do, God gets the glory for.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if we don't try to steal His glory
Yeah.
for our own,
Yeah.
then that's a pretty special.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go a long way on some boys like that because you see the ripple effect of the impact that you have. That's well beyond just yourself.
Yeah. Okay, man. Well, one last question.
Okay.
I always ask this at the end of every episode. So this is your last day on Earth, and you've got a young Jake or whoever coming up to you, wants to be an entrepreneur, or they've just started being an entrepreneur. And you've got one thing you can tell them, one piece of advice.
Curly from City Slickers. There's that one thing.
Yeah. What's the one thing that you're going to leave them with before you leave this earth?
I would say don't let someone tell you that you can, and let someone steal your dream, what your passion is. So if you've got a passion and God's given you that, then don't let the naysayers rob you of your dream.
Yeah. Nice.
So don't quit.
Nice. We better cut it off there before you get me teared up again.
Okay.
So,
man, thank you for the opportunity
Yeah.
to come and share. And I love your story.
Yeah.
And I think I love the backstory as much or more on some of these folks that we know that are entrepreneurs than even the product. And I think that's what makes that thing.
Yeah.
I've got an emotional attachment or investment in that because I know those people and I know their story and I know what they're about and I want to see them be successful. So.
Well, I just want to, before we go, acknowledge you for being there for me as a mentor and helping me out through, times I didn't know this was even going to be able to happen, to be able to start my business, but also just what you're doing community-wise, the impact, like we talked about, having an impact on other people, and the impact you've had on me, motivation for me to have impact on other people. That's one of the biggest things is, I love when I see what you're doing, I want to do that for other people.
Well, and you're already doing it, and God's laughing because the joke's on us because now we're going to be neighbors and we get to do it together.
Yeah. It could be a huge impact.
It's even more fun.
Yeah.
That's
All
awesome.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Casey, what do you think, man?
Man, I am just spiritually recharged from this whole deal.
Yeah.
Too many words that we don't have enough time for me.
He's
to tell you how I feel about this.
He's the spiritual version of cold brew coffee.
Right. Yeah.
when you need a little spiritual rejuvenation,
right.
You go over there and find Todd back there and pull him off of that roaster and have a little talk with him.
We'll get you plugged into the source, and it kind of goes back to Acts 1:8. Man, when we get filled with the Holy Spirit, He comes upon us with power.
That's it.
Just like this. So that's lightning in a bottle right there, and we know the source. It's end of the day, it's the Holy Spirit.
Well, where does everybody find EOTE? We got Facebook, Instagram, all that.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram is an easy way to find us. So we're online at EOTECoffee.com as well.
And they can purchase online.
Do it online as well. We're also in a handful of places here in Oklahoma City and restaurants, but you can find all those at our website.
Okay,
But
cool.
come down to 6th Street. It's Auto Alley, and see us and come see you here in not too many months.
That's it. Yeah.
We'll just wear out that street back and forth.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we appreciate you guys checking out Brewed with Hustle again. And make sure you guys, if you're in Oklahoma City, you have got to go get some coffee from Todd. You will not be disappointed. Like you said, the speakeasy feel. I love when I get to take somebody over there and they've not been there yet. And we're going downstairs. They're like, well, where are we going?
Are you taking me?
And then we open up into that, and you go into that shop, and it's just like, wow, this is really cool, neat place. All my friends that I've introduced to it, if we're gonna have a meeting or something, that's where they want to go now. Let's go to EOTE and have a meeting. So
and not many months away, it's going to be the same thing. Walking across the street to the north, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. So you guys check out EOTE. Go buy some of that coffee. I'll let you know right now. The cold brew is great. Make sure you guys hit subscribe, hit the like button, follow us on all the places on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you like your favorite podcasts. Until next time, cheers, guys.